the worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's top experts in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
He's a seasoned entrepreneur and founder of 14 companies, successfully exited multiple businesses over 25 years, the host of the globally acclaimed Matt Brown Show, featuring over 850 episodes with millions of downloads. His show has hosted a diverse array of guests, including billionaires, best-selling authors, and thought leaders from 6 continents. The show's content is syndicated on platforms like Amazon Prime and Roku streaming TV network. He's a 3 times Amazon bestselling author, including his work that we're going to talk about today, Secrets of Fail, Secrets of Influence, and Your Inner Game, recognized as one of the top 25 most influential people in technology by CIO Views magazine, and featured in Fast Company magazine, their list of most influential people in business. He's a significant voice in the entrepreneurial world, known for professional speaking, personalized coaching, and let's jump into the topic. Welcome, Matt Brown.
Yeah, great to be here, Lisa. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here too. I want to talk about the inner game. How important is that when you start a business, obviously, and then you go through all these disruptions and the last 3.5 years? Tell me about the inner game.
Yeah, it's essential. So, I mean, if you think about what people talk about business, it's like go-to-market motions, product innovation, business model design, sales strategy, this kind of stuff, how to build a great team, et cetera, et cetera. And while they're very important things to address in any kind of business to get it to scale, one of the things that's not spoken about is just how hard it is, and what it, yeah, and what it takes to actually build a successful company. People seem to think that it's kind of like a stock market graph. If you think about the narrative that typically comes out of Silicon Valley, where you see all these headlines about companies raising millions of dollars, with no customers, or valued at billions of dollars, but they've only got like 100 cars on the road. And so this idea of the hockey graph, like you start a business 6 months later, you move to the south of France as a very wealthy person, doing Bolivian cocaine with a bunch of Russian supermodels.
That has not been my experience so far.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, has anybody experienced that? Because that's the perception that it creates. And sometimes perception, in terms of especially first-time founders, is the reality. And so what I wanted to do was break through all that narrative and basically paint a picture of what it actually takes internally. And so the book features interviews with people that just really overcome incredible things. It's very much an African story because Africa goes through more hardship than many other countries. And, the stories were basically, I think at the time I'd done like maybe 150 interviews. And so I picked the best ones and featured them in my book and wrote about my own story with suffering and finding meaning and purpose and building this platform that I now have today. And so people being arrested for murders they didn't commit, being held in, maximum security prisons in Zimbabwe. I mean, like crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Or, kids being mauled by lions. And then, basically the story was with the doctors that fixed her face, and telling her story, like how she overcame these most horrific things. And the idea was that if you feel like your life sucks, there's always someone worse off than yourself. And so that's really what I wanted to do, is people to go, actually, you know what, it's hard, but it's not as bad, as I'm making it out to be. And I'm guilty of this, right? So it was really a book that I had to write for myself, because I'm my own worst enemy. I love to self-flatuate when things aren't going my way. And I do that because I'm very achievement driven. I understand why. But I think, if you're a little bit kinder to yourself and you recognize that no one becomes rich quick, it takes 15 years to become an overnight success. And so when you think long term and you go, actually, you know what, I don't need to build, or get to $2 million this year. It can be in 3, it's all right. It's cool. It just takes time. But we seem to put pressure on ourselves, don't we? That we need to
Yeah.
achieve these things now. Everything must happen now. And that's not how life works.
It doesn't work that way. Like whatever it is, you guys, whatever your goal is, we've all been disrupted. I hope you're listening to this. Have you ever seen that graph where there's like success at the top and then there's like water and all the stuff underneath that it took to get there?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your vulnerable share on the fact that it's not easy, that is not by my experience, and the targets that I thought I would hit in 90 days didn't hit. So it's like, fall down 8 times, get back up 9.
Mhm.
It's more like this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a stock market graph, and the lows are very low. Like when your share price falls through the floor and you're feeling like a complete imposter, or you feel like you're not good enough. Like, how do you pull yourself out of those moments? So how do you treat yourself in those moments where you're literally saturated with fear and uncertainty and doubt that you built the wrong business, you did the wrong thing, it's never going to work, or whatever you're telling yourself. And so in the book, You're in a Game, I share basically 12 principles for high impact entrepreneurs and business leaders. So these are like mantras, things that you can repeat to yourself when you are in the dumps and you do feel like an imposter and a failure. And then the stories around those 12 principles is what brings that principle to life.
Okay, give me an example of one. I love mantras.
Yeah, man. When you persevere, success can happen at any moment.
I love that.
Mhm.
That is so wonderful.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually I spoke to a network scientist. He studied the role of networks
Yeah.
in success. And he said the same thing to me in different words, but perseverance is probably the number one quality you can have. Seriously, like above anything else. Anything
I
else.
love that.
Yeah.
That's such a good message. Keep going, you guys. We're all disrupted. Never quit and persevere. And that brings me to another topic that I love of your books about secrets of fail, because we all have to take the lesson from failure, right?
hmm Yeah, and so with that one, what I wanted to do was paint a counter narrative to what you see on LinkedIn. So if you look at the timeline of LinkedIn, what do you see? Well, you see, all these people being successful. Lisa Goldenthal just like sells out another conference or workshop. This person just sold his business. This one just got promoted to CEO of this company. And so it just creates again this perception that success is the only thing worth celebrating. But you and I know that, failure is a prerequisite to success. And especially again for younger entrepreneurs who are leaving, college with MBAs and $250,000 worth of student debt. And their entire life, they've been taught that failure is bad. Like, you don't get an A on that test. Well, guess what? You're a failure. Failure is bad. Don't get good enough grades. Well, guess what? You don't get to go to college. Oh, you didn't win that hockey match, right? Well, that's also a fail, isn't it? And so then when you move into the real world, you start to realize that, well, actually, no one's successful without failure. In fact, you need 10 years of failure again to become successful. And so behind all these stories, that people are sharing on LinkedIn is loads and loads of failure. And so that's what I wanted to do, was to uncover the truth about what it actually takes to overcome failure in business as a business leader, because we all know it's hard, it all sucks, and it doesn't come easy to a lot of us, right? And so again, all I did was through my show, I do these series. This one was called Secrets of Fail, and I interviewed 150 CEOs They had built, $10 billion in revenue aggregates in terms of companies and stuff like this. And then I featured the best stories in my book. We launched like 300 assets or videos just to really start to encourage people to talk about failures. Because surely, if you say something like, fail forward, right? Or learn from your failures, because that's how you become a better CEO or a better business leader or a better speaker or whatever, then why aren't we talking about that? Because surely if you can learn from the mistakes of others, then the world would be a better place, surely. So why are we only celebrating success? Why don't we go onto social media and go, I fucked up today. I lost my company. Here's 7 things that I learned, but we
Yeah.
don't want to do that because we want the whole world to celebrate the fact that we're successful, when actually that's not human. That I think social media has created this perception that we should only ever celebrate success. And it's a doctrine that I think should be disrupted and it should be changed, because the more we can talk about our failures, the more we'll be able to start to influence people, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to do X, but it didn't work. Here's why. Right?
Yeah.
Not like I did X. In other words, this is what you'll see. I built $1 million company in 12 months without hiring a single member of staff. That's what you
Yeah.
see, you know. Meanwhile, it's like I tried to do it and this sucked. I
Yeah.
failed at that. So I got halfway. It wasn't bad, but I failed at that goal. But here's what I did, I was successful at, or here's what I failed at, and here's what I learned. Just to start making a positive difference, because that's what influence for me is. It's not about enriching yourself, it's about enriching others. It's about elevating others and making a positive contribution to society.
Well, I love the fact that you are keeping it real on the need for failure and calling out some of these people on social media where you're getting caught in this like blame, shame, victim comparison mode, when in fact they aren't having this open conversation about failure. And historically, if we could study the failures of others, we can learn from their mistakes instead of just our own mistakes too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about the value of that knowledge. If you could have, thousands of stories, data points, insights, hacks, tips,
Yeah.
and you could aggregate it. And that's actually what we're doing now. My team built a custom GPT app. It's called Matt Brown AI. And we've loaded all the transcripts through over the last 800 interviews, loaded all that up into the LLM, the language model. And what I'm doing is looking to influence 1 million entrepreneurs, this year. And what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do is who's got time to listen to 800 podcasts? I don't. But if you could train an AI, right, on all of that information, there's thousands of stories, data points, lessons, hacks, and tips. And then I could give Lisa, and everyone else in the world a front-end chat GPT interface where you can ask questions that based on that knowledge capital, then surely, and the failures, right? Think about that.
Yeah.
And like, how do I avoid this? And that information, by the way, is not in GPT because it's trained on all knowledge that already exists out there in the world. But my content, my body of work is based on real world stuff. It's like these guys fucked up at building this company, or they were remarkably successful. So how did you do it?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I love that AI. It's wonderful. It's such a great tool to have. So I think that's so cutting edge. And I know you mentioned influence. So let's just jump into the secrets of influence too, because that's my last question. Like, what does influence mean to you?
Hmm. So if I ask 10 CEOs what's influence, I'll get 10 different answers. And it's because influence isn't really understood, but it is commoditized. Because if you say the word influencer, what do you think about? What do you think about influencer marketing? But influencer
Right.
marketing is about self-enrichment. So I have this platform, I have this following, and you, Mr. Brand, pay me $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to promote your product, that I don't really care about. All I'm doing is really enriching myself and creating this perception that this is a cool product. And so influencer marketing as a system for me is broken. And in my book, I write about this idea of influence systems, because what is influence really? Well, if you think about who are the greatest influencers in history, so Nelson Mandela, right, from South Africa. And if you think about Elon Musk, what's he doing? Oprah Winfrey, what's he doing? What's Satya Nadella doing? They're elevating others. That's what they're doing. Multiplanetary species, right? Making sure the human race doesn't die because of some, cataclysmic social event or, space event. Nelson Mandela made the choice to uplift South Africa. I mean, imagine being in prison for over 3 decades, okay, being released from prison. And then he had the choice basically to enrich himself. He could have gone completely corrupt and just put South Africa into the civil war, kicked all the whites out of the country, which is what happened with Zimbabwe, with Robert Mugabe, right?
Right.
And so my point being is that influence is a choice. So ethically, there's negative influence and then there's positive influence. Negative influence is influence marketing, misrepresenting the truth about what you can do and the value that you can create. Still creates traction, right? Still gets your attention, but it's not really ethically correct, is it? Like when Logan Paul launched Prime in Europe, they basically gave this crowd all these bottles of Prime. And they said, what we want you to do is empty these bottles, and then we want you to throw them at us on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. And then what you saw on social media was basically this crowd losing their minds and throwing these Prime bottles, and it created the perception that this launch was going wrong. So then it got picked up by mainstream media. The whole thing went viral. They got a whole bunch of earned media. So I'm saying, was that ethically correct?
Probably not.
Probably not. So exactly. So it's not what I would do, because for me,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be authentic. It's not how I want to lead. But that, so that's what I'm saying. There's negative influence, but then there's positive influence, like Nelson Mandela, Elon, and these guys, and many other business leaders, right? They are making a positive contribution to society so that the world is actually, what they're building is actually going to leave the world in a better place. It's not just about enriching themselves, like influencers typically do. And so that's really what influence is. It's about recognizing that it's about elevating others, but then the book addresses specifically why most business leaders don't even know what it is. And then furthermore, understand how to cultivate their own influence. Right. And so I share a whole bunch of ideas and frameworks that I've used over the last 10 years to elevate my own influence. Because if you think about my show over the last 10 years, the why hasn't changed. It was always about making a positive difference to entrepreneurs around the world through information sharing at scale. See, that's what influence is. And I believe that if you recognize and you get clarity on what influence is, you can actually become more successful faster.
I love your focus on elevating others instead of just elevating yourself as an influencer and what influence is, because obviously that influencer word has a bad connotation, but everybody wants influence. It just gives you, like, you built this massive platform by elevating others and highlighting their stories. And that's what I like to do as well. So I love your spin on influence, and I love your podcast, The Matt Brown Show. Where can people find more of you? I know we met on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure. So LinkedIn's a good place. You can just plug in Matt Brown Show and you'll find me everywhere. So LinkedIn's good, mattbrownshow.com. Yeah, all around.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being a fantastic guest on Disruption for Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the Whole CEO Disrupted series. This program is brought to you by Magic Mind. This little shot of productivity helps me focus, and I'm giving you guys a special discount. So I'll link up all the information in the show notes, and I'll see you soon.